Lopez wants it away. And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza and the Mets lead 3-2. Bartolo has done it! The impossible has happened! This is one of the great moments in the history of baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mets fans of all ages, here is your host, Nick Durst. Hello, Mets fans. Welcome back to another edition of Bleav in the Mets. I'm your host, Nick Durst. Thank you for joining us once again. We appreciate all the support as of late on the YouTube page. Continue to like and subscribe and comment. We appreciate everything you are doing. Well, the old saying goes, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And now it is time for David Stearns to get going because this is tough times for the Mets fans right now. Ronny Mauricio, he tears his ACL playing in the Dominican Winter League. Why is he playing in the Dominican Winter League when he's going to be likely starting for the Mets in 2024 after he won the Dominican League MVP last year? It is mind-boggling. He's out now for the year, and it does not look like the Mets are going to get Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I'd be surprised if they do, as the Dodgers have all this money still and all this space after that ridiculous Ohtani contract, a lot of deferred money. What a way to cheat the luxury tax. The Yankees, I think, are more of a favorite as well. So we'll see how it has to play out. And a lot of the Mets right now, what we're preaching and Stearns, we don't want to clog holes. We want to keep some openings for some players, some prospects, one of them being Drew Gilbert. So we're going to discuss him soon as well. So joining me now to discuss all this, he is a lifelong suffering Mets fan as well, but he's kind of disassociated from his fandom as of late. He is an expert at all things college baseball. So we're going to welcome him in now, and joining me on the show at this time, he is none other than Johnny V TV. Johnny V, welcome in. What's up, man?
Nicky D, been a minute, kid. How you doing?
Doing well. Welcome back to Johnny V. Of course, we have the great Mets prospects breakdown, which is still relevant. So go back, scroll up on the channel or up on the iHeart or iTunes or Spotify page. Listen, we broke down the whole farm system for the Mets. So right now, Johnny, the Mets, it's not looking good. I don't think they're going to get Yamamoto. Where do you think Yamamoto is going to turn out? I think it's going to be the Dodgers or the Yankees. I think the way that the Dodgers structured that contract with Ohtani leaves a lot of room for them to go after Yamamoto, maybe go after Juan Soto next year. And I think that contract should be illegal. It's cheating the luxury tax system there. So what are your thoughts, I guess, on the Ohtani signing? Any surprises the Mets really weren't involved at all, didn't even make an offer? And where do you feel Yamamoto falling here?
I mean, honestly, why would Ohtani want to come to the Mets? The Mets aren't a serious contender. And if they were, then maybe he would have reconsidered. But when you consider the geography of LA, he's been in LA for the last, 5-6 years. Yes. It's much closer to Japan than New York is. Yep. Ohtani stays in the same city, and he's going to a team that is a perennial World Series contender every year for the last decade. So to me, it doesn't really make sense. It was a no-brainer. And like when the Ohtani sweepstakes were happening, people were like, oh, like, maybe the Red Sox, maybe the Yankees, maybe the Mets. Like, no. Like the guy wanted to stay on the West Coast. Like there was reports saying like he did not want to go east because of the geography. Yeah. And the only other team that was maybe in contention was the San Francisco Giants. And, like Ohtani got $700 million. And I know he's great. I know he's a generational player. No players work that, dude. No. And at least for this year, Nick, you're paying $700 million for just a hitter. Yeah. A guy who's not going to play the outfield.
For the Dodgers case, they paid $2 million for just the season.
Well, you know what I mean. But like a guy who's they're not going to let him steal
for a season for a DH.
They're not going to let him steal bases. Like obviously you got to pay for him to get him. Whatever he wants, you got to pay because the Dodgers are a team that has been historically a choke artist since 2014, and the only ring they won was a Mickey Mouse ring in the COVID season in a 60-game season. But to be honest, It's not looking good for the Mets, bro, because not only did the Dodgers get Ohtani, but now they have a fellow countryman for Yamamoto. They got money because the Dodgers cheated the luxury tax, as you so eloquently said. I mean, obviously, the MLB, PA, and the whole league should step in and be like, come on, this is technically.
And MLB PA accepted that because it sets a weird precedent for their players to say, oh, we could pay them like such little amounts. But I guess this really wouldn't work with other players. You think Scott Boras would have let his client do this? No, because Ohtani's agent is silly. Because how is he going to get his commission? He's going to wait 40 years. The agent's probably at least 40 years old. It's just strange. But yeah, Yamamoto. Obviously, the Mets have Senga, and there's some relationship there. But I think Yamamoto is not interested in the Mets. I think the reason why you heard the story about Steve Cohen and David Stearns going to Japan is like a public relations cover up here. So it's like, hey, we did our best effort. We went there, and they did. But I just don't think there's any major interest there from Yamamoto. I think he wants to be in this traditional franchise. He's either going to go with the Dodgers or he's probably going to end up with the Yankees. And if the Yankees get him, and after they got Soto, I think David Stearns, he better take cover here. He's going to go 0-3 in the offseason where he doesn't get a big slugger in Ohtani or Soto, doesn't get Yamamoto, and he got Carlos Mendoza as the head coach after he couldn't get Craig Counsell, Johnny.
Here's the thing about the Mets, though. If we're being honest, like obviously if you're the Mets front office, you're not going to come out and openly say this, but they're not a contender this year and they're not a contender next year. There's even rumors of shopping Pete Alonso out, which is like, it's like killing a unicorn. That's a cardinal sin. Like, what are you doing? And I think the realistic possibility here is Yamamoto is rumored to be looking at getting a $300 million contract. Like, I don't care how talented you are. You're a guy who's never played American baseball, a $300 million contract. Julio Rodriguez didn't even get $300 million. And this guy has got like 60 home runs and 60 stolen bases plus combined in his first 2 years. So in my opinion, you're paying $300 million arguably or in that neighborhood for somebody you don't even know what he looks like in American baseball. Whether he's the real deal or not, if you're the Mets, like you're going to pay that, but chances are you're probably not even going to win 80, 88 games. You'd be lucky to win 83 games, to tell you the truth. So, if I'm Yamamoto, you have a lot of suitors that are looking to throw money at you. Right. Number one, why wouldn't you look to go to a team that has a chance to contend? And number two, now you have your fellow countryman who probably is like in your ear saying, yo, like LA's legit. I've been in LA for almost a decade. It's real. Like it's close to Japan. Like to me, that it's hard to compete with. The Yankees are the only other option, but even still, like I don't know if I'm buying it. You're going to pay $300 million for this guy? Like,
so the thing with the Mets is, I agree with you. They're not a contender for 2024, but that's by design, I think, because they could be a contender. They have the resources financially. They have the prospects where they can go trade for a starting pitcher. Now, your guy, Tyler Glasnow, rumored to be traded to the Dodgers. If the Dodgers get Yamamoto and Glasnow and Ohtani for next year, I know Ohtani's not pitching. They're the favorites. So the Mets, they have the financial means to turn it around, but they want to go all about the prospects. And, we'll talk about that momentarily here. I don't know why, if you're David Stearns, you want to come to the Mets team where they have the financial means and you want to kind of do a rebuild. To me, you should win now, win later. That's what the Dodgers did when they got this new ownership group. They developed the farm system, but in the immediate term, they spent a lot of money on players. Remember, they got Adrian Gonzalez. They got all these players. They took on the big money. They got Mookie Betts and whatnot. And that's the way I think they should have went about doing this. We'll see if they don't get Yamamoto. They should have got Seth Lugo. He's gone to the Royals now. So they're not going to get Blake Snell. They're not going to, like you mentioned with the timeline, sign these guys who are older. They're going to just ride it out with the young guys, get some people for a year or two. The thing is, Johnny, the Mets last year, they sold at the deadline. Maybe it was prematurely because they only finished, I think, 7 games behind the Diamondbacks in the standings who go to the World Series. So with the extra wild card now, it only is going to take maybe 84 wins, 85 wins to get into the playoffs. So if you feel you're even within striking distance and you can do it in the offseason monetarily, Why not try to sign some big name free agents? Right now, they're not signing anybody. They signed a bunch of minor leaguers. This team needs an outfielder. We're hearing about Michael Taylor as their top target. Michael Taylor is a 220 career hitter. They need offense. So things are going in a dangerously wrong direction. One person that they were maybe counting on this year to help offensively, which I thought was going to have a good year, a good rookie year, was Ronny Mauricio. Ronny Mauricio tears his ACL in the Dominican Winter League the other night. Why are these major leaguers playing? I understand maybe like last year he played because he was a minor leaguer trying to prove himself. If he's going into this spring training penciled in as a starter, why was he playing it here? Why are the teams signing off on this? This is a big deal here to see Ronny Mauricio, Johnny, who is probably going to start at third base or second base, out for the season. Devastating blow to him, devastating blow to the team.
Yeah, I mean, listen, these guys probably want to stay sharp. Ronny Mauricio probably had high expectations of himself. He looked good in his limited action in the Mets last year. I mean, he's a guy that, is capable. He had a lot of potential, and he still does. And it's an unfortunate blow because he was figured to be, like you said, a key contributor to the Mets this year. But, I mean, I don't know why he's playing in the Winter League. I think, it's probably because, what else is he going to do? It's just you want to come into the season ready to go. But at the end of the day, man, I do think it's going to be a rough couple of years for the Mets. Mm-hmm. We're coming into the 2024 year. I'd be surprised if the Mets are even considered to be really somewhat contenders until 2026 because the prospects that they have coming up, most of them aren't going to be ready to come up for a couple years. They have a good farm system. So my guy, Drew Gilbert, who we talked about in the summer, was a huge centerpiece in the Justin Verlander deal with Houston. And I think they won that deal. I think the Astros won that deal. The Mets won that deal with the Astros. A lot of people don't watch college baseball and they don't understand it. And they'll start to realize who a prospect is once he gets to AA and starts to produce. Bro, I've watched Drew Gilbert at Tennessee. This kid he's a competitor. He's a gamer. He's got skill. To be honest, I thought the Astros reached on him in the first round in 2022 last summer. But this kid's got raw talent. He's got power. He's a good center fielder. He could be a leader. He's a guy that's a spark plug. And I feel like there's a shot that he could get some time in the bigs this year, probably after the All-Star break, especially if it's in a lost year. Maybe you see what you get out of him, get him ready for 2025. But then the other guys, Luisangel, Acuna could be a producer. You know what I'm saying? But then, they have these young guys like Jet Williams, Colin Hawk. They're not going to be up for a while. Kevin Parada is a guy I also watch at Georgia Tech. He hits rockets. But they also have Francisco Alvarez. So, you have two catchers. You already have Pete Alonso. As long as you don't trade him, Kevin Parada, it's going to be hard to get him, Lindor, or him, Alonso, and Alvarez in the lineup at the same time. So maybe you look at trading him. And then the pitching prospects, you got another guy who I watched at Tennessee that played with Drew Gilbert, Bleav Tidwell. I think could be a solid middle of the rotation guy. Brandon Sproat was the Friday night guy for Florida last year. He's probably not going to be good to go for another few years. So the prospects are there, but it's going to take some time. And to tell you the truth, it almost doesn't even make sense to spend all this money now. You kind of got to embrace the suck for a couple years because you want to build up some of this prospect juju, getting them closer to their appearances. And then when you're ready to really pounce, then maybe you go in and you get some of these free agents. Because, what are you going to do? You're going to go get Yamamoto, spend $250 million in a lost year. Your ace right now is Luisangel.
The thing is, Yamamoto is only 25. So it makes more sense to sign him than say, let's sign Blake Snell at age 29 for an 8-year deal. Because in 10 years, if you give Yamamoto 10 years, 35 at the end of the contract, he's still probably going to be, I guess, his injury pitching well. You mentioned Drew Gilbert. There's a lot of pressure on a guy like him or Acuna here, I think, on this season to make the team make an impact during the year because David Stern, in his winter meeting, said we don't want to sign anybody long-term like a Matt Chapman or these outfielders because we don't want to clog up the space for these young guys. And we've been hearing this for a while now with this franchise, but listen, Brett Beatty, he came up, he hasn't hit. Mark Vientos, he hasn't hit. So it's not just like a guarantee if you tear up the minors that you're going to be coming up and tearing up the majors. So we'll see what happens here. But you got to hope Gilbert's good. Another guy we didn't mention was Clifford, who was in the trade for the Astros. He projects to have a higher power ceiling than Gilbert, but he's further away. He was supposed to go to Vanderbilt, I Bleav. So they're all about these young guys right now. But the thing is, you mentioned all these prospects, and there's really not space for all these guys. Jet Williams, he's a shortstop. Acuna, he's a shortstop. The Mets have Lindor, shortstop. They have all these outfielders, and they have Parati, you mentioned. So I don't understand why the Mets aren't on the market to maybe trade some of these guys and get some people who could be long-term pieces, like your guy, Dylan Cease, like your guy, Shane Bieber, like a Corbin Burns, who are going to be free agents in the next year or two, or Glass now. They have the prospects, like you mentioned there, to make these trades. So I don't see how they're going to better their team in the long term if they hold on to all these prospects. Eventually, you have to flip some of these guys.
Here's the thing. Okay, like Tyler Glasnow. Tyler Glasnow is one of my favorite players in the MLB. He has been for the last few years. But, we're looking at it. Tyler Glasnow is like 30 years old. He hasn't pitched. He hasn't pitched, I think, more than like 18 starts in his career. Like when he's healthy and he's right, he is one of the premier pitchers in baseball. But because he plays for the Tampa Bay Rays, he's not really as known as some of these other guys. So, like, not only do you sign Glasnow, you have to, like, really worry about if he's going to be healthy. But, like, if you're the Mets, signing one or two guys isn't going to do it for you. Yes, you have Alonso, you have Lindor. That's a really good combo at the top of your lineup. But the other guys, it's just not there. And, like, forget the lineup, like the pitching staff. Like, you have Senga. You might think Senga's going to regress in his second year. Guys have more film on him. That happens. Like, but let's say for argument's sake, Senga does not regress, and he even improves on what he did last year. Another starter won't make a difference. You need probably at least two starters to really make an impact, and you probably need a couple bats. You need one or two prospects to pan out. That's a lot of ifs, and that's a lot of money spent. So I think, honestly, the Mets this year, for at the bare minimum, are going to have to take it on the chin and then kind of see where they're at with the free agent pool heading into 2025, because, they're going to have to spend a lot of money, and they're going to have a lot of things work out in their favor in an NL East that's loaded. The Braves just got better. They have trade targets of their own, and then if nothing else, they have a superstar blooming right through the minors in Hurston Waldrop from Florida. Hurston Waldrop, a first rounder, was a steal in the late 20s. I couldn't believe he didn't go top 15. This kid's a dog. This kid might actually become the ace of the staff for the Braves in a few years. And if not, he's probably going to be the 2 behind Spencer Strider. There's an unreal pick. Then they have the Phillies, who's loaded. They have the Nationals, who's coming up. Washington has a roster that's coming up. They got Dylan Cruz. Obviously, a lot of people now know about him. But the guy that they don't know about that was a steal was Yohandy Morales out of Miami. Yo-Yo Morales is a guy that's going to hit 35 home runs in the bigs and probably hit close to 315. They stole him in the second round. He carried the Hurricanes all last year and was the reason why they even made the field of 64. To be honest, like I don't, and even the Marlins, to be honest, like the Mets are going to have to wear it for a while. They might be the worst team in their division, and they're going to need a lot more pieces to even be in contention. And then they have to even discuss, like, are they keeping Alonso or are they going to pay him? Obviously they should, but you don't know what the new owners.
I think the way that things are playing out so far, I think if the Mets are really out of it at the trade deadline, which I think they will be, David Stearns will not hesitate to trade Pete Alonso. He will ship him out and get whatever he can from, because, listen, I think Stearns wants to build this his way with his guys. Obviously, Alonso, not his guy, but that would be a cardinal sin to get rid of Alonso, because Alonso, he's the best player on the team. He would go down if he signs as a Met for his career as the best offensive Met ever. He'd hold all the records hitting-wise. So that's going to be a tricky situation here. But now, listen, it makes a lot of sense why the Mets ended up getting Carlos Mendoza, first-time manager, because they're going to be losing. So it doesn't really matter. I thought this was a win now team, a win now scenario, but everything we've seen in the offseason has been a we'll wait and see type of offseason. So we'll see what happens. The other news was that the Mets they dropped to the 19th pick in the draft next year. They were slotted as the 7th worst team. They dropped down to 9. If their pick was outside of the top 6, they were going to lose 10 spots because of the luxury tax. Now they're at 19, Johnny. Any guys, I mean, obviously the college baseball season hasn't begun yet, but at that spot in the draft, are they going to really be able to get like a impact guy who will make an impact before, let's say, 2027, 2028?
Yeah, I mean, listen, losing out on a top 6 pick was big because of their luxury tax. They had to slide all this way, but there's a lot of talent in this draft class. Like last year, the thing is, obviously we haven't seen the season play out, so you don't know what's going to happen. Like I thought there were certain guys that should have went top 15, top 20, and they didn't. And you have to mix in the international group. You got to mix in the high school group, but some college prospects that I think the Mets could use. Now, I probably would highlight pitching first because they have a couple guys on the offensive end. There's 2 guys I want you to keep an eye out for. Number 1 is Trey Savage from East Carolina. This kid is their Friday night guy. He's a bulldog. He had a great season last year. This is the kind of guy that the Mets could use. He's a mid-major guy, like the mid-major East Carolina Pirates. Cliff Godwin, their head coach, always runs a good program there. This is a guy that could pump it up to like 98, 99. So I would definitely keep an eye out for him. I feel like he might slide. He might even slide out of the first round depending on what happens this year. Then there's another guy who I think is a dark horse. Jonathan Santucci from Duke. Left-handed pitcher. Also was their Friday night guy last season before he had Tommy John surgery. He shut down Wake Forest in March when these 2 teams played. For anybody that doesn't know, Wake Forest was really the best team in college baseball last year. I know LSU won it and Wake Forest lost to them in the semifinals, but like top to bottom, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons were the best college baseball team last year. In my opinion, no question. He shut them down. He's a lefty that's getting up to 98. He's got a disgusting slider that generates a ton of whiffs. Big strikeout guy. When he gets right, the thing he's got to get under control is the walks. But coming off a Tommy John year, it's going to be important to see how he progresses and how he comes back because he absolutely has first-round talent. And I think there's something to be said for a lefty at this stage that can really do some damage. And, maybe an outside shot if we're talking pitchers. And this is an outside shot because I'd be surprised to see him fall outside the top 12, especially considering his profile. Arkansas, their Friday guy, Hagen Smith, another lefty. There's rumors he's getting up to 100, 101. That's as a southpaw. He pitches in the best conference in college, the SEC. This is a guy that I would also look at. God forbid he slid to 19. You never know how these drafts work out because something that plays in to the MLB draft that a lot of people don't realize is something called slot value. So you have to fill out your entire draft in a certain amount of dollars. So some teams might not want to sign a guy because he's too expensive and they want to save money. So like, obviously we don't know what the slot value is yet, but I think the pipe dream for the Mets, because I would think that they should go pitcher because there's pitching talent here. Hagen Smith is the guy that I would really want. But like if you got a Trey Savage or a Jonathan Santucci, I think those are wins. I think those are guys that could really come up through the minors within 2-3 years or less.
Well, you heard it here first, so keep an eye on those players this season. Johnny, this has been great. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yep. I'm on Twitter at _JohnnyVTV. Always putting out the good stuff, college baseball. I have to announce my podcast coming up closer to the end of January. I got my guy Matt Grissom coming on with me. We had a great run last year with Bet Karma, just putting out a lot of good content. Wake Forest was my preseason team. They came close, and you can find out who my dark horse is this year for college baseball. But tell you something, bro. I'm trying to get you on it. College baseball is better than the MLB. That's a fact. I can't. We can't argue it, and people don't know it yet, but they're going to find out in the next few years how good this sport really is.
All right, follow Johnny. You'll see a lot of college baseball tweets and a lot of MLB betting tweets as well. And of course, follow me at Nick_Durst on Twitter, at Nick Students on Instagram, and continue to follow us at Bleav in the Mets, at BLEAVINTHEMETS, all over the place. And of course, on YouTube, keep subscribing, keep liking, keep commenting. And that's going to do it here for this episode of Bleav in the Mets. Until next time, everybody, let's hope for the best. And let's go Mets.
Near the wall. It's out of here! Flores ends it with a home run! Put it in the box.